Oh, turn on my video for a second. Hi, everybody. Welcome to DGD 275 week 3, but new instructor. I am Shannon McNamara. I'm actually one of the associate deans of the graphic arts department, and I'm going to be taking over for Veronica for the next 2 weeks. So I'm really excited to be able to share my expertise with you. And I'm really excited to be teaching this class because we're getting into some more advanced Illustrator techniques, and I definitely love Illustrator. It's one of my favorite programs. It's actually the second Adobe program I ever learned 20 something years ago. And it was the first Adobe program that I actually learned at the college level. So I'm really excited to kind of carry on this journey with you. So today should be fun. We're going to go over some stuff in week 3. We're going to go over a lot of the learning objectives for the week today. And I'm just going to say that this week might be one of the most important lessons that you're going to learn as a graphic designer. And I don't say that lightly. We're really going to get into some visual hierarchy today, and visual hierarchy can be achieved not just in the assignment and the assessment that we're doing for this week, but visual hierarchy is one of the biggest things that you need to know out in the field as a graphic designer. It's the way that you, as a designer, force a viewer's eyes through your piece. So, and that's how you achieve it, is with visual hierarchy. So this week in our live sessions, I really want to not just demo how to do the assignment and assessment, but I really want to get into with you guys how to design a piece that is going to get eyeballs on it. And we're going to really break down the page to do this. And I think it's one of the things that you don't just learn overnight. It takes practice, and now is the time to practice before we're out in the field. So with that being said, let's hop into some of our objectives for this week. We're going to demonstrate again a knowledge of visual appearance and hierarchy through compound shape building. That goes into our assignment, but I want to bring us even past our assignment and get down to, the bones of being a designer and how we can take that and apply it to the field. Apply it to being able to get that job. We're going to distinguish between and correctly apply file formats for print and web-based illustration projects. We're going to discuss some possible production problems encountered in vector illustration and define effective help-seeking methods. That is a big one too. And then we're going to discuss sequential illustration workflow process from initial sketches to finalized professional output. So, some big words. Basically, what we're going to do is figure out this week how to get people to view your design piece the way you want them to view it, distinguish and save files the correct way. That's number 2. Biggest thing, save files the correct way. Number 3, you're always going to run into problems, but how can we fix them? And number 4, how to get to the pieces done. So, bringing it from our brain, putting it onto paper, getting it out the door. Those are the 4 things we're going to go over this week. Let me, and I'm going to, I'm just going to stop this share and do a new share for 1 second. Actually, let me go to the next one first, and then I'll pause my share. So I'd like you to meet Gohan. Go is my dog, but I wanted to kind of show him to you in a fun way. So here is an image that I just took, a cell phone picture I took of Mr. Gohan, and I had some fun in Illustrator. And this image, let me see if I can change my camera. It's actually, you can see it way back there, up on the screen, up on my wall. It is actually this photo right here. So I created what is known as a poly image of Gohan. So I took this image, brought it into Illustrator, and kind of broke everything down to the lowest kind of common denominator shape. So that way it still resembled him. And then the color scheme you see in the background is clearly not this rug, which is absolutely, still have this rug, it's the rug in my office. But it's the color scheme of our downstairs, our office area, which is this green and gray. So I thought that the piece would be really cool to create and make a low poly, no, I'll never get my camera right, a low poly image of him and have it printed on metal. So this is just something, you know, kind of thinking outside the box of Illustrator that you can do to have fun. It's a great thing that you can do as, you know, something on the side, something that you can do for clients, something that you can offer to friends and family, you know, to make some extra money. So I always like to show this when I do an Illustrator class. But Mr. Gohan is going to give you the clues on our live lecture quiz today. And I'm going to pause my share so I can read you a little story. Hint, this is how to answer the live lecture quiz. Let me pause for a moment while I open up my little story that I wrote. It's a little weird, I'm not gonna lie. I had some fun with it though. Where I saved it. Here we go. So let me read you a scenario for this week. I restarted my computer right before we started. And so John is a designer at a direct mail company and is working on new envelopes for the business. As he rounds the final bend of all of his hard work, or the delivery phase, he realizes he has a very big problem on his hand. The file will not save due to insufficient computing. He was working in Illustrator, but he decided to forego trying to fix this issue and instead just did a quick save as and saved the file as an RGB JPEG rather than a CMYK file, AI file, or Illustrator file that the printer is going to need for these envelopes. When he tried to send the files to the printer, they were the wrong file format. Because John had left for the weekend, the printer had no choice but to print what John had submitted. When the envelopes came back from press, they had the wrong color scheme because the pre-press operator tried to change the file back to CMYK, but some of the information was lost from going back and forth too many times. The biggest issue, the company's logo didn't look right, and John needed to explain the issue directly to management. So John needed to recreate his entire Illustrator file because he didn't save the original file. He then needed to resend the correct file to the printer, and his boss was not happy because it cost them additional money to have the entire job reprinted. John was notified that this error would be discussed further in his review next week. So what could John have done differently? Well, first off, save and save often. Make sure that you are working and saving to a network that has enough space to handle the work that you're doing. Most computer hard drives, they fill up way too quickly. Also, restart your computer at the beginning of each shift. This helps clear out the cache in your programs. And if you do run into any issues, try your best to get IT involved quickly to salvage your work. sometimes even copying and pasting to a new document might be a quick enough fix. So let me resume my share. So in this scenario that I shared, at what phase was the company in when they realized that they had some problems? These are going to be your questions. What technical problem did the company experience? What happened when they tried to send the final files? And what happened when the company delivered print copies? So those are the things, and this is a real life situation that happens all the time. And I've been there where I'm like, just quickly save it and hope for the best. But hoping for the best does not always work out, because when you change things back and forth too many times, a JPEG, it loses resolution. Your AI file has a lot more resolution than your JPEG file does. So it's gonna print wrong and the color's gonna look wrong. And especially if you're printing something that's more of a corporate piece that you need to send out, like all of the envelopes that things are going to go out in, your company wants to make sure that's their branding. They really want to make sure that it looks right when it's printed. Also, you would be surprised at the guy at the corner with the pizza shop, how he recognizes that blue is not the blue that he stared at for 27 hours to make sure it was the blue he wanted. So these are the things to really look for and make sure that you are using color appropriately, and that everything is the way to go. All right, so I'm going to try something different. And I'm hoping that it works on the video. I'm going to start my video here. I'm going to turn off this video right here. So hopefully, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually, just in case, I am going to do a screen recording with QuickTime. And in case if in the Zoom video, you can't see my hands, which I have my other camera on, I'm going to do a screen recording here because I really wanted you guys to be able to watch me in Illustrator use the pen tool to add some dimensions to hair. So let me. Everyone. Let's go over into Illustrator, and I'm just going to create a new print document, just an 8.5 by 11, because I wanted, I did not want to join. So hopefully you can see my screen and see my hands. Hello. And the reason for this is I think sometimes the pen tool feels super complicated and we're not sure what to do with our fingers on the pen tool. And the pen tool was one of the last tools in Illustrator that I truly mastered. And even in all these years of working in Illustrator, I still don't feel like a master pen tool person, because every tool keeps being refined. They add more options each year, and you have to keep, working at your skill level to become the best that you can be. Your skill, and get out of here. That's great. You're my baby. So right now, I am just in Illustrator. I am in Essentials Classic mode. I always like to demo in Essentials Classic mode, and I'll actually reset it for those of you who want to demo in the same mode that I am in. If you can switch up your workspace up here in the workspace and change it to Essentials Classic. And if you want to make sure it looks exactly like mine, like I just did, you can reset your Essentials Classic. I'm also going to turn on my rulers because, quite frankly, I like to work with rulers. So I'm going to go to View, go down to Rulers and Show Rulers. I'm also in inches, not pixels, because my brain works in inches. It doesn't work in pixels. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and go down to my next point. When I click, I'm going to drag and kind of pull. You can see to make that curve. And I'm just going to do, again, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. And I'm just kind of making this curly cube. So the thing with the pen tool is, in order to end the pen tool, you need to go back up to the selection tool or hit V. And then I'm going to select it with the white selection tool because I want to kind of change it up. I want to do these handles, clicking on the point. I'm going to drag it out here. I'm going to drag this. And I can also change some of the strokes now. If I click on stroke, it's going to give me some of the options. Now, one of the things that I like to do, and I just think it gives a little bit extra, is the cap. I like to round out the cap, and let's adjust some of the weight here. And if we go back up to the pen tool and maybe we can click and add another point. Oops, I can see that I got something going on in the chat here. Hold on, let me turn the chat on first. Oh, nope, it's an old one. Never mind. But this is what I'm talking about adding some dimension by adjusting some of the strokes and some of the brushes that you are using. So if you click on the stroke option right here when you're on the pen tool, and you click, oops, and you click on the little hamburger here to show options, it's going to give you different profiles that you can use. So some of the profiles that you can use are right down here, the width profile. So see how it gets a little bit thicker on the inside and it trails off at the end, and that starts to look a little bit more like hair. Let's try some of the other ones. This one, again, also starts to look a little bit more like hair. And these are the types of things that you can do, again, to add that dimension to your piece when you're trying to do hair. Doesn't this look a little bit more like hair would? Even this one. Oops, that's what I selected. There we go. So starting off thinner, getting thicker in the inside. And then you can start to, if you hold down Option, you can make a copy. And again, I'm adding some tendrils there. Now, what if you wanted to do something like a braid, like a side braid? You can, again, use a pen tool. And I like to do braids almost like an eye drop. And again, we can start to adjust our width profile. So now I've got one part of it. I'm going to hold down Option, drag, and down again, and drag. Right? And I can start to adjust them and bring them in a little bit, to start to show. Great. And then maybe I want to, end my braid with a little hair tie right here. And then really quickly, and I'll send my hair tie to the back. So object, arrange, send to back. And then doing something like this to end my braid would be fun too. So let's try a couple of tendrils here. And make sure when you're doing the tendrils, you turn off the fill. You just really want the stroke. And just make a couple of copies. And I'm holding down Option to make the copies. And then I can just kind of bring all of those to the bottom. And I mean, this was a really, really quick demo, but it adds more dimension than just kind of coloring the hair in a solid color. We're going back to our, going back to what it was that we wanted to learn to customize our lines last week during our assignment. So again, this is something that's going to really set you apart as a designer. You want to be that one where when people look at your Illustrator work, they notice those little details that you the end of your pieces, and that you've got that really nice flow and it's getting thicker as it goes around. Those are the things that people do. They really, really do notice. So it's a really great way to set yourself apart from the rest of the crowd, and to show that you know your stuff. All right. So I'm going to turn off for now. I'm going to stop this video. Run my iPad. I always like to run everything on both things. And let's go back in to, I'll stop this video for all right. So let's get to our discussion for week one, because our first post, again, even though no late posts, let's make sure that we're posting our first initial post by Wednesday night, because that way other, your fellow students, they can get in, they can answer you, they have somebody to answer. A lot of you like to work early in the week and make sure that you have those discussions out of the way, so that way you can focus on doing the assignments after all the demos are done. And again, it really helps people to plan out their week, and then you have your discussion done as well. So again, we've got 2 posts. Week 3 discussion 1 is on the life cycle. So you guys can read over the little background story on your own, but I'm going to go over the prompt with you. And it's about thinking back to your own design process as you've been creating projects. And when I think of my own design process, it's I'll go over my process with you, because I think it's helpful when people tell you their process. So most of my career was spent doing print work. And that meant that I worked in what I call the Adobe trilogy, right? So Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. Those 3 programs were my life. That's what I did every day. And I used to design a lot of advertisements. So my process involved sometimes getting I had to come up with a printed piece, and my sales reps would give me their notes from what they got from the customer on sticky notes basically, or they would write it out on a sheet that we would get, name of the advertiser, please use a photo, here's their logo. Half the time they would give me a business card with the logo and say, that's all the customer has. And I would have to then go into Illustrator and recreate it. Sometimes they had photos they wanted to use, sometimes they didn't. A lot of times if they had photos, they weren't the best quality, and I had to explain this to them. So that way, in the long run, maybe I could come up with, a piece that would look something like this, a printed piece. So my process would be to first take the piece from my address, read the whole thing over, and look at 3 key points. What size did the piece need to be? What was the use for the piece? And what the customer had for assets. And I would start there. So I wasn't thinking about fonts yet. I wasn't thinking about color yet. I was thinking of, I need to design something that might be an 8.5 by 11 folded piece that's going to be mailed, that the customer has a logo that they want me to use, but they didn't give me a good version of it, so I need to recreate it, and they want one big photo. So in my head, when I got better at this later on, I could kind of put things together in my brain. All right, so big photo, that'll probably be the bottom piece. It's gonna fold, and I'll have to do the print, the mailing area on the front and the other information on the inside. But that was when I got better at this. After years and years and years of being a designer, my process when I first started was to sketch it out on paper. Really get out a piece of paper and think to myself, all right, I've got a piece and it needs to be folded. All right, so let's take the piece of paper and fold it. And they want a big photo, and all right, so when I fold it, I realized that this is the part that's gonna go through the scanner to get in the mail. So, all right, I'm gonna have to put the address label is gonna be here, and the return label, and it's gonna need postage, and I know that there's postal regulations. So I would sketch that all that way. They would be able to, see, I would be able to see where I needed to put things. And then I would look and say, all right, they want a big photo. Well, it seems nice when you pull something out of the mailbox to have a big photo that you see when you're pulling it out, right? So you know what it is, or it piques your interest to open it. And then I've also got all of this ad copy, which if it piques their interest, then they'll read it. So maybe I should put the ad copy on the inside when they open it up, and there should be a headline, a subheadline, and the body copy. All right, so I would sketch that all out. That would be my design process, and those would be the steps of my workflow as well. So what you need to answer in the prompt today is, how is your process? That when you think back to how you've created your projects up until this point, how have you, done the different homework assignments each week? Where have you started in that process? And maybe if you're not sure where you've started yet, go to this week's assignment and take note of what you're doing and what your process ends up being. And then you can use that in answering the prompt for this week. But then I want you to think, how is your process different from the traditional design process? Well, what is the traditional design process? That's something you can research. That can be your citation for this week. And what do you think is the most important step in a workflow process? So think of your workflow and think of what another designer's workflow might be. And again, this can, you can do some research to what a traditional workflow process would be for a designer. And do you think that how they start is the most important first step? So there's a couple of different ways that you can research this to get that citation this week. You can look at the steps that graphic designers use. A good place to start might be Smashing Magazine does a lot of really good graphic design related articles. So you can do some research there if you want to kind of look outside of the library. And then there's tons, especially with COVID right now, there are so many articles out there on work time management because they know we are all working remotely. We're all working from home. We're all trying to do 8 million things a day. Um, my husband is still working from home. He's over here. My kids are upstairs. I have to close the door so you guys don't hear that. We have a lot going on these days. So, there's so many different ways that we can answer this week. And when you're looking at your peers' responses, look at how they do things because, a lot of this, even though there's some research there, a lot of this is going to be how you design things and what your steps are. So you might read a couple of steps that your peers use each week to get their work done that might surprise you and might be something where you might not have traditionally thought of that as a way to get it done. So, really look at what each of you are doing. This is a great topic to kind of do more than the two peer posts. This is like, treat this discussion post this week almost like a Facebook thread, or, I mean, if you guys are still cool enough to be on Facebook, or if I'm just completely uncool saying I'm on Facebook, I don't know. There's so much of that Gen Z against millennials, and I'm over here being a Gen Xer, so I don't know where I fit into that. I'm sure they just consider me. So let's look at our second post this week. And troubleshooting. I think other than your traditional design skills, which are, how to wonderfully create things, how to be the best designer that you can possibly be. Your second biggest job as a graphic designer is totally going to be troubleshooting. I learned that. I think I learned that the hard way because one of my first jobs as a graphic designer was working at the city newspaper. And it was a great first design job because I really got in there. I got my hands dirty. I got my feet wet. I learned how to design immediately on a deadline because there is no greater place for a deadline than a newspaper. But because I was kind of the lowest rung on the totem pole when I was first hired there, I got put on the Saturday night and Sunday morning shift that nobody wanted to work. But the problem is nobody was there to help you on Saturday night or Sunday morning if you ran into issues. So again, you can read over the background, but let's go over the prompt because you need to know how to troubleshoot if no one is there. If the Student Success Center is closed or IT is closed, where do you go for help? Because you're always going to run into something. And, Google is your friend. But there are some other places that might be a better friend for you, depending on what the problem is. So let's see, according to our prompt, what kind of issues can come up when designing complex design? Me racking my brain, so many. The more complex a design gets, the bigger the file gets. And the bigger the file gets, the more computer needs to just like through it, right? So, um, those are some of the issues you will always run into. I have a really fast Mac. This thing was so expensive when I bought it, almost 10 years ago now, but it still runs into issues. My husband works on a PC over here, and he's a technical illustrator for the Navy. So he literally lives in Adobe Illustrator. And he built his PC with just a couple of months ago. He still sometimes is like, and it grinds down. So that's what happens when you are designing complex designs. You're just going to run out of space. So what do you think is the most important production task that might help aid and streamline your workflow? That's what you want to look into. Look into what professionals do when they start to run out of disk space, when they're working on something really complex in a program and the file size gets really big. What do they do to troubleshoot that? And when it comes to troubleshooting things in Adobe, your biggest resource is going to be help.adobe.com, and it'll automatically put it in for you. The Adobe Help Center is like way better than Google. It doesn't hurt to Google them. You got to start somewhere. You can't run into a problem at your job and just go, I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's not working. We got to troubleshoot. Yeah. Great resource with help.adobe, even Google. There's some other web boards, like Stack Exchange, which they have some great resources there. They have some great answers there. All I'm going to say is tread lightly in there if you have questions, and please do not take their answers to heart. Some people will help you, other people will just give you a I don't understand why you don't know how to do this. And it's like, because you don't know how to do it, that's why I'm asking. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and sometimes I run into something where I'm like, there's got to be a simpler way to fix this. And I can't think of it right now. And I might have to go into Stack Exchange, and I'm always like, oh boy, I've exhausted every other option. I'm gonna have to ask a question at the discussion board here, and I just hope that they don't eat me alive, because they will. So just kind of tread lightly in there. They can be not nice. So all right. So all right, so that is our discussions for this week. Again, make sure you have those 2 follow-up posts. Make sure you've got that citation, all the things that you really need to have, and you'll get your full points. And really there with talking with each other. The discussion is a great place to really get to know each other, and it gives you more of that classroom vibe and that classroom setting that can sometimes be lacking when we go to school online. And I finished up my degree online, so you know every once in a while I really like the camaraderie of getting into the discussion boards and really talking to people. And I used to like when I could take that one rogue math class that I had to take on campus, because I was like, people, although everybody's pretty much online these days. So for week 3 discussion 1, for a peer response, you can think about how the original poster in the discussion documented their design process, and you can even offer suggestions on how they might approve or what you might do similar to them. And then for discussion 2 for peer response. Again, you could offer some suggestions for aiding their workflow, or, you know, maybe they discuss something that you hadn't thought of, and let them know that you're going to add that to your workflow. All right, so I think I'm going to demo the assignment and the assessment in our Thursday session. And I think what I want to do is, instead of doing a demo per se today of just the assignment and the assessment, I want to give you more tools to correctly do things beyond this assignment and this assessment. So let me close out my lovely hair that I made today. I don't need to see it. And I'm going to create a new document. I'm just going to do an 8.5 by 11. I know that the assignment calls for an 11 by 17, but I'm going to do an 8.5 by 11. I'm going to turn off my video just so it's not in the way. And let's think a bit about hierarchy and what hierarchy is. And if you're a little bit confused on this topic, don't forget, on the homepage of the course, under the readings and videos, to do the media for week 3. So week 3's media is through LinkedIn Learning, is going to get into some Illustrator one-on-one fundamentals and creating a spot illustration, but it's also going to get into some shapes, color building, color and building, but it doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty this week of what hierarchy is. And I really want to get into that nitty-gritty with you. I know I had a slide. Oh, here we go. Visual hierarchy happens because we do certain things, okay? Because we have balance on our page, and we're using a design that has a middle point, and everything around that central point is symmetrical. And we have oh, hold on, I just saw something in the chat that I know is going to go right along with what I'm saying. If anyone else's Zoom message, the big photos in front of everything. Okay, can you see the slide? Okay. Big photos in front of everything. Let me, oh, hold on, let me see, let me look. That's where you're stuck looking at my face. That's lovely. That's hold on. And try a new share and see if that works. It might, yeah, it's not showing that way on my my iPad either. Oh, it could be something. Where are you watching it? You might just need to minimize it by clicking on it and minimizing it.
Oh, Shannon,
Let me turn on my video real quick and see
now I see
if
your
I
live
can
version, and then I see
kind
a
of
picture of
force
you.
it.
It's like I can't get enough of you. The one thing I did notice is it lets me only chat or hide non-video participants, and that's it.
And for some reason, your you're talking to me is going to not my headset, and I don't know why. My computer's being very, very weird today. I can hear you over in my other headset, which makes 0 sense. Doing well today, computer. Doing well. Maybe I can do this. Hide the video channel. Is that better? And you might need to type it in the chat. No. Okay. Can you click and make it go away on your screen? Like, does it give you a no? All right, hold on one second. Let me just stop my share for a moment. I think that's fine. Moves. Wait, there was something. And do screen share. And video. Did that work? You know what's weird? This has to be the difference between people who are watching on their phone or their iPad and people who are watching on their computer, because it looked fine on my iPad, but everybody on the laptops were having trouble. Very interesting, Zoom. Very interesting. We had a couple of updates this week, and I think I got all of them, but then my computer updated. Yeah, always a good time, which is always why I try to run it on my laptop, but my laptop didn't have, and not my laptop, on my computer and my tablet, so I can see what you guys are supposed to see. But this time it couldn't be because there wasn't an update in the app on my iPad. You can't see me shaking my fist at Zoom, but I'm shaking my fist at Zoom. All right, so back to visual hierarchy, aka not my face, and balance. So when we're creating balance, we're using a design that has a middle point. And that's the central point where we want people to start at, and then kind of, their vision goes off of that in a symmetrical way. So the principle of balance applies to arranging a layout to avoid crowding or visual overload. So you want to have a nice balance, which I tried to show here, of one nice big image with a balance of typographic elements on a page. And you'll notice that the balance is really achieved. No problem. Well, if you guys ever see anything that looks weird, always let me know. And that balance is achieved with, having white space in between the elements on the page. So we've got some nice white space here. We have a nice border going on here. We've got the border here between the elements, and it helps us to achieve that balance. Then we have unity. So unity means that we're creating a repeat of elements to create unity on the page. So you'll notice we've got this repeat of elements here. We have a repeat in the color palette. And it creates that unity. So without some aspect of unity, our images become chaotic and quickly unreadable. And without some elements of variety, the image is going to be lifeless and dull and uninteresting. So neither confusion nor utter regularity are visually desirable. And you may be saying, but how do I know? This is something that can't just be learned once. And a lot of the elements of graphic design, there's a reason why we repeat them from class to class to class, because you don't just learn something in design in a class. You learn by doing in design. And the only way that you're going to learn is by repetition. So just like we need to create unity by repeating elements, we need to become great graphic designers by repeating our processes that we do over and over and over and over, because each time we do it, we learn a little bit more. So that's one of the things that I want to try to instill in you guys the next 2 weeks is, not just how to get an A in this class, but, that can easily be done, right? It's really easy to get an A. And I hate to say this, but it is. If you have the time to put in and you meet the requirements of the assignment, you're going to get an A. But an A does not necessarily mean a great graphic designer. And you may be saying to yourself, what? But I have, I've gotten an A in all of my classes. Yeah, you think, being that great graphic designer who's going to get the job comes through doing things over and over and over again so they become second nature. And one of the things that needs to become second nature is hierarchy on the page. And I can tell you just from the fact that I've been doing this for so many years that you have to keep working at this. You have to keep designing, because being a designer really is a use it or lose it skill. When I go designing for a while and I get back in there, maybe I've been doing like too much work in Excel. I'm like, oh boy, I don't even know where to start this week. What is graphic design? No, I mean, it's not really that bad, but it takes me a minute to get myself back in my groove. We want to have harmony on the page. That means that we're using a combination of features and principles that make our page visually appealing, and they help to balance the space. So see how all of the things that we're learning, they kind of intertwine with each other. So this page has harmony because it has balance, because it has unity. It has a harmonious pattern that you might not see immediately, but the pattern involves squares and blocks and color and font use. And that harmony comes together where you might not see all of those little elements right away, but it looks nice. But when you try to get at the root of why the design looks nice, it looks nice because of the harmony of the page, the balance of the page, the unity of the page, all coming together in a really interesting way that makes us go, oh, all right, that was pretty cool. So again, these are the little things that they're not going to click the first time that you do it, and that's okay. They shouldn't click the first. I mean, if they do, that's awesome. But nobody expects them to all click. Nobody expects you to immediately, 5 minutes after you start designing, understand how to make harmony work every single time. It takes time. Your page should have some rhythm. Just like music has rhythm, the page needs to have rhythm. So this can be employed by repeating, structural elements throughout the space. So we've got some icons that are being repeated throughout the space. Those icons aren't necessarily the same icon, which create a pattern, but there's a rhythm to the way this page is laid out with these 3 icons. That rhythm is a basic characteristic of nature and the pattern of seasons, of day and night, of tides. I have a typo here. And even the movement of planets. It all exhibits regular rhythm, and we need that type of rhythm on our page. Then proximity. All right. I'm gonna have to turn on my camera again to explain proximity. And the reason why is proximity, I think, is seriously, and let me proximity is probably one of the hardest things, I think, to explain when you're explaining the hierarchy. Because what it means is putting things together because they make sense being together. So I'm going to use this Mass Health dental checkup thing that my son got in the mail, which was kind of funny because he's 2, but he's getting mail. And it's just a flyer, but it helps to explain proximity. So let me just like we'll do a little bit too much. All right. So you can see that we've got a logo here. We have a headline here, and then we've got the body copy here, and then we've got, some other information of where they can go to get more information. So when you are laying this out on the page, you need to think, how is somebody going to use this? Well, the way that they're going to use this information is, first, they need to know what this information is. It's time for a regular dental checkup. Chances are really good that when you're given your ad copy by your client, by your ad rep, by anybody, this is all going to be typed out in 12-point Times New Roman in Microsoft Word with no hierarchy at all. And you need to think where to put the elements on the page so they make sense. And that's where proximity comes in. You want the viewer's eye to go to the logo and then go to the headline. Oh, it's time for, Mass Health is where you get your health insurance through the state of Massachusetts. And it's time for a regular dental checkup. They offer the dental insurance, not like you need a big background on this. And then, you want to put in all about it underneath, but you can also find answers to your question online at www.masshealthdental.net. You would want the logo or the URL to go with, you can also find answers to your questions. There is a good chance that they gave you, just randomly wrote down the URL somewhere, and they just randomly gave you all of the ad copy, and they might not have even put, you can find your answers. That's where you need to use proximity to figure out where to put things. I'm just looking for another good example. Top drop that. This uses proximity as well. Everything, in a way, uses proximity. We've got, it's big top drop underneath it for proximity to keep things that should be together. And I know it's transposed on the screen, but it says menthol eucalyptus, which is the flavor. Then we've got, sore throats, temporarily relieves coughs. So you want to keep information that should be close to each other together. You want to, again, on the back, cough drops, menthol. And then the drug facts information that has to go on everything. They use the commitment to quality to put it right near where it's distributed from. Again, to keep it together. And the logo at the top on purpose. You want to know who it is. Menthol, nice and big, next to a picture of the cough drop, next to a picture of the mint leaves. Again, keeping light things together. I think the best example of them all, I really hope I have one in here. It would be very odd if I didn't, but that doesn't mean that these aren't odd times, is when you have my desk. I cleared everything into my drawer today, knowing that I would be doing a demo of my desk. To make sure it looked nice and clean, which means that now I can't find my takeout menu that I wanted. But one of the of proximity. So you have the logo for your restaurant, and then you always want to put, the phone number nice and big, especially on a takeout menu, and the website nice and big, all together. Why? Because when they're ordering something, You don't want them to be searching all over the place to be able to call an order. If they can't find your number, you know what they're going to do? They're going to order from somebody else. So that proximity keeps all like information together because it belongs together. That's what proximity is. All right. And I really do think that proximity can be one of the hardest ones to explain. I really, really do. You know, on this example, we've got the picture of the cherry pie next to the cherry pie. We get the picture of the blueberry tart next to the blueberry tart. Again, it makes sense. Alignment. You want things to be aligned on the page in a way that makes it easier for the reader to read. If you have large swaths of text, okay, let's get some lorem ipsum. Copy that. You've got all of this text, right? I'll make it like 10 point type so it actually shows it on the screen. And this is already hard enough to read at this size. You would never use something this size on the web, but this is hard to read. Now, imagine if you had it all centered. It actually makes it harder to read with large swaths of text. The reason why is, you know, the left alignment, our eyes are used to following and getting back to where we were. And this rag over here, it's called a rag, makes it very difficult to read. So even if we added in a nice return between our paragraphs, it's still really, really hard to read. And you may say to yourself, well, I can read it that way. And that seems to be one of the things that we tend to do when we don't want to fix something, even though we know we need to fix something. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't care if you can read it that way. You know why? Because it doesn't matter if you're able to, it matters that everybody is able to. So don't, you know, don't take that the wrong way if somebody says that. But ultimately, it really doesn't matter if you're the only one. It matters that everyone is able to. Another one that's really hard to read is when it's completely justified, because again, this left side rag is, it gives our eye a break and it tells us, oh, go to the next line. Oh, go to the next line. Right aligned, same thing. Our brains just aren't used to reading things that way. So when the biggest takeaway from this, when you have a lot of text, always left align it. Always left align those paragraphs of text. And hierarchy. All right. So back to our original thing that we were talking about. Hierarchy means taking all of the things that we just discussed, taking all of your ad copy and arranging everything, the photos, the headlines, the subheadlines, the phone number, the web address, in a way to show those elements and give them a different class. Not like a class like going to school, but a different class like heading, subheading, body. That means you want your eyes to go here, then here, then here. And that's what happens. That's what you get to do as a designer. You get to tell the person who's looking at your piece where it is that you want them to look. I want you to look here, then here, then here. And the way I'm going to do that is by having a clear visual hierarchy, because that's the way our eyes perceive information. Going back to, again, that dental flyer, and you guys who are here, you can answer in the chat. What did you see first on that flyer when I showed it on the screen? And I'll turn it back. The logo and the heading, right? Logo and the headline. So let's do this again. For those of you at home. First thing you notice, logo headline, body copy, logo headline, body copy. And you might have actually, if it was like flipped the way I'm seeing it, because everything's backwards, you might have noticed logo headline body copy if we did it that way. But our eye actually starts at the upper right hand corner of the page and then goes around like this. So I worked for many years designing coupons, which were this size. So we always put the logo over here, the best offer underneath it, knowing somebody was going to see the name of the place, the best offer, and then all the information that wasn't really relevant, upper left-hand corner. Always worked every time. That was the way your eye traveled around the page. Pretty cool. And we never noticed it until somebody came in and told us that one day. And we were all like, you're right. All right, for repetition, again, creating a pattern. Patterns can be anything. You guys created patterns last week, but this is still a pattern. Setting up the boxes the same. That's a pattern. It's a pattern created out of repetition of the items on the page. Contrast. Contrast exists in so many different ways. And there's a right and a wrong way to use contrast. So they've created contrast in large photo versus small photo, larger text versus smaller text, green against the tan background. These are all of the different ways that they are using contrast on the page. Color's a great way. Too much color, nothing is going to stand out. Just the right touch of color, and it's going to pop. It's going to draw the eye to where you want the eye to go. So again, those other design considerations, color, employing color to draw the eye to where you want to go, and typeface selection. Body copy, readability only. I don't care if the font looks cool. I don't care, because guess what? If nobody can read it, or if one person has a hard time reading it, that's one person you're going to lose. Readability has to be key in everything. You need to be able to have people read what it is that you are telling them, no matter how cool it looks. All right, so let's get back into Illustrator and what I wanted to really demo today, how to set up that page to have hierarchy. So the first thing I'm going to do, again, turn my rulers on. I don't know why. I feel like there's probably a setting that I used to have set to keep the rulers on that just aren't on right now. So I'm going to go to show rulers, guides. I'm going to written. No, I don't like that grid. View, high grid, view. I like to make my own grid. So I think that's what maybe we should do first. So if you haven't done this already, ever, the easiest way to make a grid is to drag your rulers down. And you can just let go. And if you put them in the wrong spot and you're like, I can't move it, go back to view, go to rulers. Unlock guides. Because it automatically locks them, which is kind of a bummer. And then you can move it around. And I like to zoom in. Again, if you want everything to be at exactly an inch, you can drop it right on the 1 inch line. And the biggest guide that you're going to want to do is to create a margin. I say start off at least a half an inch. I'm going to do an inch right here because I already started that. And you can select it by literally selecting it and going over and typing in 1.0 for an inch. Select it, and you can see how it turned from like that green to the blue. Inch. And Command 0, zoom all the way out. And this one should be 7, so let me select it. And then what I could do is if I want a guide every inch to help me, you know, kind of get some sort of a pattern going on the screen, I can just drag a couple of rulers down and then just manually put in where I need them to go. So this one, we need to go at the 2.0 at the Y. This one would go at the 3.0 at the Y. This one, 4.0. This one would be 5.0. Six. Every time I do this, I type zoom is like everywhere. Hold on, let me try to wide zoom. 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you can even drag them in. 2, 3. Doesn't really matter if you're going to type it in where you plop it. And again, to be able to move them like this, you need to unlock them. Because we're doing an 8.5 by 11, it's a little bit off. So what I would do, and it won't be on an 11 by 17 to get it nice and even. So I'm going to change this to 8. Get rid of that half inch. Board. See how I'm going to click the reference point on the left and 0. Okay. And just hit enter and enter. There. And hit B to get myself back to the black arrow. So now that I have all of my guides all set up, what would be good now is to definitely lock your guides, to go down to guides and lock them, because you'll be putting things on the page and you'll accidentally see your guides or move them and you're like, oh no. And if you're new to figuring out hierarchy, what you can do is you can actually use your rectangle tool to start to block things out on the page. You know, where you want things to go, and just use black and white. So let's say that we wanted to recreate visually with just black and white that flyer that I showed you. What I can do is black out where the logo was, another rectangle, black out how the headline went, Something like this. And then black out where the body copy went. And I'm going to just use smaller. And I'm going to hold down I'm going to select it and hold down the Option key. And as I start to drag, it's going to make a copy. And then I'm going to hold down Shift. And then it stays together. Oops. Again, hold down Option. And I'm going to align them by using my vertical distribute center. And that's going to make sure they're nice and even. And then I can grab all 4 of these now. And again, hold down Option and start to drag. I'm not getting my options that show me the distance is the same. Hold on. Preferences. Oops. Selection guides. After I restart, I did a couple of updates. Some of my things got lost. They're lost for forever. It's not really lost. Oh, all right. I don't have a Wacom tablet, and I kept wondering why I got an error. There we go. It's good to go into your preferences and just double check things. Oh, come on. Hey, it was smart. I could Google it, but I don't want to Google it right now with all of you here. Maybe this. Because I love that. That's like my favorite thing where it shows you that everything's equal. No. You. Preview. It would really help if I had enough coffee to remember what that was called. Smart guides. Look at this. There we go. Oh, the smart guides. Yeah. See how it gives you, if you have your smart guides on, it shows you that everything is nice and equal. So let's grab these. Whoops. And see, once you get it, of all of them. And again, I'm using up in the alignment up at the top. I'm distributing vertically. And then I'm going to grab all of these. I'm going to hold down my Option key. And you'll notice that when you hold down your Option key, it goes from the 1 arrow to the 2 arrows. And this is something that'll really save you some time. Hold down Shift. All right, now I can see over in the right-hand corner where I have, let me see if I can get myself right there, that they are the same space in between. I'm just going to zoom out, and now I can grab these ones. Again, hold down the Option key. And there we go. And then I'll get rid of these 2 down here. I'll get rid of this one because it's way too close to the bottom. And now visually, looking at this, okay, I'm going to turn on my camera again. Compared to looking at this, you can see the hierarchy, right? We've got the same visual hierarchy going on here. And we very easily laid out hierarchy on our page before we've even put any of the items on the page that we need to do. So if you're not sure how to start, but you're like, all right, I know people should start and the logo should, probably be in the upper right-hand corner. Don't feel like you need to reinvent the wheel every single time. You can start with what you know is gonna work and then just go off of that. And then, like I said, the more you start to do things, the more you start to really put things together over and over and over again, you'll realize, well, no one else worked that one time when I put it together like this. No one else worked when I put it together like this. And those are all the little tools in your arsenal that you're going to have as a designer to really make some great designs. Again, coming off of those basic design principles. All right. So what we can do is we can actually put together a piece based off of this. And again, I'm going to make a new artboard here, right next to this one. I'm going to go to edit artboard, and I'm going to hold down my option key, but this time I'm going to copy my artboard and bring it over here and drop it off. And hit it, and then just click off and go back to my selection tool. So I'm going to, in here, I'm going to delete all of these ones because I already have this grid nice and set up. I'm going to leave this over here as my reference, okay? And what we're going to do is let's find a logo. Let's find an image. Let's add one more thing to this, and we'll add some body copy and a headline. And we're going to put a piece together using some visual hierarchy. So I'm going to leave open our lorem ipsum generator there, and I'm going to go to brandsoftheworld.com, and let's grab, oh, you know what? Pfizer's big right now. Let's grab the Pfizer logo, just a black one. And I agree and download. And we'll click in. Okay, wait. Like show and Finder. And if you ever run into it, I love giving tips and tricks that'll make your life easier. If you ever run into that, it wants to open up EPS files in preview and you're like, no, I really would like you to just open this up in Illustrator every single time. Select it in your Finder and do a Command I and see where it says open with preview. Change that to Illustrator and click change all. And now every time you download an EPS, which is definitely an Illustrator file, it'll open them up in Illustrator for you every single time, making your life easier, saving you a step. All right, so let's grab this logo. We're going to copy it, and I'll go back into my artboard over here. And again, I'm just looking at my reference. I'm going to paste it in. Way too big. When you are resizing things in Illustrator, don't forget to hold down the shift key if you're going to drag from the edge. You can always manually scale it by going up to Object. I never do it this way. I'm going to do it wrong. Object. Here somewhere. Transform. There we go. And make sure you have preview clicked and make sure it's on uniform. And then what you can actually do is just use the up down arrows right on your keyboard. And you can watch it scale till it gets to about the size you want. Click OK. I'm going to drop it up here. And even though this part of the logo is kind of breaking our plane of our margin a little bit, it's okay. However, I'm going to get it nestled right into our margin right here. And I'm going to bring it down just a smidge. So the this is right there, nice and lined up. In here. Nice and nestled into this area. Perfect. Now, like I said, we're going to add a image this time. So let's go to pixels.com. Definitely my favorite place to find stock images. And let's see what happens if we put in vaccine. This is a good one, actually. Let's do free download. Thank you, Cotton Bro. We appreciate. Go back into Illustrator, and I'm going to do a file place somewhere in my downloads. And I'm just going to click and I'm going to throw it off to the side. It's going to be huge. That's fine. Zoom out a bit. And remember, this is one of the things where if we are, you can also constrain proportions now. Where the more elements we add to the page, remember how we were talking about this for our discussion this week, you might run into issues because you have more elements on the page, which might begin to give you some trouble. I'm going to leave this right here for right now. And we need a headline, so I'm just going to very quickly Pfizer headline, Pfizer COVID vaccine, we'll say. And just as a website. And we can grab, we'll grab this as their headline. And I'm just going to quickly drop the text tool and drop that on the screen for a moment. And we'll learn about it to grab some. Oh, maybe they don't have. We'll just grab some lorem ipsum text, maybe 4 paragraphs this time. We'll generate it and copy. And again, I'm just gonna go to my text tool. Somewhere over here, just drop that. Let me do a text box so it doesn't run everywhere. All right, so we've got some text, we've got an image, we've got a logo, and we have an idea for hierarchy of how we should put this together. So let's give some space and let's start to separate this into 3 lines. I think the 3 lines is really going to work here because of how we have this separated here. But here's what's not going to work. Myriad Pro, which is your default font. There are so many good fonts, okay? But one of the things that we want to realize when picking a font to work with the logo is this logo is pretty stylized. It's got kind of like, you know, the bubble to the R here, the bubble to the F here. And so we're going to want something simplistic that does not compete with the logo, but still a good font to see, for readability. I got an extra return there. There we go. So I'm going to go into my character panel. And if you don't have a whole ton of fonts already loaded, this is a great time to go to Adobe fonts and find something that's going to work. You know, a script font, not going to work. This, hard to read. This, too stylish. This, way too stylish. We need to think of our purpose. You know, we're conveying medical terminology. Helvetica, yes, that would definitely work. Agenda, Avenir, these are great great. I have agenda right here. These are great options. And let's start to explore those options. I have agenda medium. I know at one point I had all of them. Another good option. Avant-garde, that might be a good option. Gothic. Oh, here's the rest of my Avenires or agendas. Heavy, this would be a good one. But I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want something that for my headline that's gonna be a little bit thinner. So this is where looking to Helvetica is, for what I have on my computer right now, is probably gonna be my best option. So I want something a little bit more condensed. Maybe a condensed bold. And what I'm gonna do is this register mark does not need to be this big. So in my character panel, I'm gonna go to more options. And I wanna change this to a superscript. And then it's okay if it's just a little bit outside. And I'm actually gonna even bring this on and then manually bring it back up. And I'm gonna change this to be the correct quote or open quote, and I need to look at my punctuation. So this is a single close quote, so shift option and right bracket. There we go. And then I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. This is our new identity, an emblem of purpose. I'm gonna bump up this font size just to here, but I don't want it to over compete with breakthroughs that change patients' lives. So maybe I'm gonna just bring down maybe 80% gray. A little bit of an 80% gray. And for my lorem ipsum, here's where I need to be consistent in my font use. If I'm going to have a sans serif font, which is a font without any feet, I need to use another Helvetica because I don't want to mix my fonts. So, and I want it to have readability. So I need to make a good choice here. Helvetica regular will be that good choice. Here. I'm gonna bring this down. I'm still, again, I'm in the range of where I was, of where I wanted to be, but I still have the problem of this image. I like the idea of, this image kind of filling the screen, but I don't want it to compete. So I'm going to first arrange and send it to the back. And you can see, yeah, that's competing. Let's see what we can do. I really want the photo or the bottom of the ship. Maybe we can bring, I think the biggest thing is the bottle at this point. Let's try to bring the bottle up. And again, sometimes like your first instinct might not work, so that's okay. And what I would normally do in this instance is I would actually flip out the hand. And have that be have that coming in over here. We can do them here, and it's a good use of kind of, again, getting to use the pen tool. So you can make a clipping path on an image. I'm gonna very quickly, I'm gonna flip this to be the stroke, not the fill. And I'm just gonna follow, the image. Not gonna lie, I can do this so much quicker in Photoshop, but we're in Illustrator right now, so here we are. And the reason why I can do it so much quicker in Photoshop makes zero sense. I'm just going to tell you that right now, because it's a mental thing that I always do my photos in Photoshop. Kind of, stuck in our process of how we do things, and we can still also do it in Illustrator. It's fine. I'm one of those people. I'm definitely a creature of habit when it comes to the programs that I'm used to using. And that's just me. And you'll do, like, you'll kind of become a creature of habit as well. And hold on. I'm trying to see. It's really dark over here where the hand is and where everything else. I might need to do this a little bit differently than just a clipping path. All right. And I always have to end it way outside the photo. Just all right. So then we'll grab both of these. So I've selected both of these. I'm going to go up to object. I am going to go to path. And where are you? So like I said, I never do this in here. Clipping mask. Here we go. Make. Boom. All right, there we go. So this clearly gives it that more readability. And you could even add a soft pattern to the background. You guys went over making those patterns last week. Maybe you have a pattern that kind of fades into the background here, but we have some good visual hierarchy going here. So I'm going to quickly save this. Save and save often. I did not follow my own steps. Let me just at least, I'm going to name this visual hierarchy demo. And save. I always save a native file first and then save it as a PDF. Even if I only need a PDF, always save the native files. And again, I save everything that I work on to Dropbox to keep my own hard drive nice and clean as it can be, actually. Then I'm going to do another save as, and this time I'm going to choose the PDF file. Right. Now we can check out PDF. We've got some good visual hierarchy going on here. I would actually, I'm not gonna lie, this is gonna drive me nuts. I would actually bring this line up closer to the top line and move this a little bit more from the center nicely in this space that we've created here. And you gotta sometimes look at it a couple of times. So let's save it. Make sure you save it in both places. I will check it again. I never just right the first time. You always gotta take a couple of looks. You know, I'm let in, boom, to the logo, down to the headline. Now I can read about it. And this is, you know, this is a good way that before we've even added color, before we've added even, you know, more design elements to this. This is just black and white right now, really. I mean, I could even remove this image and we would still have that hierarchy. So we have now told our viewer where they want to go. Pfizer has a new identity and purpose. It must have to do with the vaccine. It's a breakthrough. It's changing patients' lives, and then you can read about it. You know, we're the cruise ship captain here. You know, for our visuals, for how we want this to look, and it's really going to help you each week with your design pieces. You know, outside of just doing the assignment and putting things together, you know, to meet the rubric. You know, these are things that you can go back into some of your old projects, right? That you did back in the level 100 classes and take another look, fix them up in your portfolio and put them back in. You know, you may have listened to Sean talk about this way back when in DES 099, but there is one graduate of our program that every year, he's a bachelor graduate, he goes back into his Behance and reworks all of his school projects. And he takes the time to go back in with fresh eyes and rework them. So his portfolio is constantly up to date and it's constantly the best it can be. So I think that that's really cool. And, you know, learning each of these little steps to doing that hierarchy is really going to be what sets your pieces apart from everyone who isn't taking that time to think through their designs. So tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Thursday, we are going to do a demo of the week 3 assignment, the visual appearance hierarchy. If you haven't gotten a chance to read over the background yet, please do that, and we will do a demo of how to put that together. And we're also going to take a look at the week 3 project assessment, the file formats. So again, if you haven't gotten a chance to read that over, we'll take a look at that as well on Thursday. Now we have a couple more minutes. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer before we end today? And I definitely appreciate everybody who was able to make it today. It's always awesome not to be talking to an empty room. And if you did have some feedback on your week 2 assignment, I know I jumped in kind of late. There is, you know, there's always a chance to resubmit. I will regrade for sure. And you can always, even if like you feel like, you know, you got a good grade, if you still want to rework it and have me look, definitely, you know, resubmit it, and I can still, you know, give you more feedback as well. It's always great, again, even though you might have met all of the metrics of the rubric, there's always room for improvement. You can resubmit at any time. I'm okay with you resubmitting at any time. Oh, great. I'm glad the hair demo helped. You know, that's a tough one. Hair is tough. But you know, there's a couple of tips and tricks to make it a little bit easier. And it's really fun once you start to really get in there and play with the textures. You know, you can go and really get into some of the, you know, different Illustrator brushes and everything else and look for brushes. I can go through and regrade things from week 1 as well. Yes. I might have a couple of things if they were resubmitted or late that haven't been graded yet, but I will be trying to get in there this week to do that. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for making it today, for sticking around for our hierarchy demo. You know, this really is just keep practicing this. I can't stress that enough. And keep practicing by being a visual learner in your environment. Look at your mail pieces when they come in the mail. Look at packages when you are buying things in the store. The next time you go grocery shopping and you grab something off of the shelf, I want you to stop and think about what it was that made you grab it off the shelf. Was it, especially if it was potentially an impulse buy? You know, maybe you always buy Cheerios, so that's why you grab the Cheerios off the shelf. But if you grab something you don't normally buy, I want you in that moment to think about what made you grab that and what it was that caught your eye about the packaging and the graphic design of that packaging. Because I can guarantee you all of those elements that we went over today is a reason why you grab that off the shelf. So that's just something to think about this week going forward. All right, thank you guys. I will hopefully see you all again on Thursday, and I hope you have a great end of your day. And if you have any questions, any concerns, you can message me right through the course. And I'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day.